Okay, let's unpack this. There's some cold cases that are just fun to talk about because they're spooky or weird.
Right.
But then the cold cases that actually change how you see history.
Mhm.
And today, we are opening a file that I think most people, honestly, probably 99% of people assume is closed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is definitely a case that suffers from overfamiliarity.
Overfamiliarity, that's a good way to put it.
We think we know the story so well that we stop reading the details. We just skim.
Exactly. We're talking about one of the most infamous figures in human history, Judas Iscariot,
The betrayer.
the man with the bag. And specifically, we're talking about the bizarre, conflicting, and frankly gruesome details surrounding his death, and maybe even more importantly, the money he left behind.
It is a subject that, when you really peel back the layers, it reveals a lot more than just a bad guy doing a bad thing.
Yeah.
It opens up a window into the economy of first-century Jerusalem, the legal system, the geography, and even the psychology of religious extremism.
And that's the mission today. We aren't just retelling a Sunday school story. We are doing a forensic at it.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at the crime scene photos, metaphorically speaking, and realizing that the pieces of the puzzle don't fit together the way we were told.
That is right, because if you look at the primary source documents, the texts themselves, you don't get one clean ending to the Judas story. You get two completely different crime scenes.
It's the ultimate Mandela effect. I mean, if I walked out onto the street right now and asked 10 people, how did Judas die? 9 of them would say.
He hanged himself.
He hanged himself every time.
And they would be quoting the Gospel of Matthew, which is fair enough. It's the most famous account.
But if I asked a forensic pathologist to read the book of Acts, they'd give me a totally different cause of death. They'd say, well, it looks like this guy fell face first and exploded.
Burst asunder is the classic translation. It is visceral. It is messy. It's not a clean hanging.
So we have a hanging versus a bursting. But that's just the surface. The real mystery, and this is what blew my mind when we started researching for this deep dive, is the money.
The money trail.
The 30 pieces of silver. In one story, he gives it back. In the other, he spends it on real estate.
And that is the contradiction we are going to solve today. How can he return the money and buy a field? How can the priests buy the field and Judas buy the field? It seems impossible.
To answer that, we have to go deep. We're going to talk about Greek grammar, clay soil composition, and my favorite part, white-collar crime in the ancient world.
We are going to build a profile of Judas not just as a traitor, but as a man obsessed with status, purity, and financial leverage.
So buckle up. We are going to the field of blood. Let's start with the basics. Lay out the evidence for us. We have 2 main testimonies. Let's start with the one people know less about, the Acts of the Apostles.
Right. So this is Acts chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. The writer, Luke, is giving us a parenthetical explanation of what happened to Judas after he disappears from the main story.
An aside, almost.
It's an aside, yeah. And by the way, here's what happened to that guy. And he starts with the purchase. He says, now this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity.
Stop there for a second. This man purchased. So the Acts file, Judas is the buyer. His name is on the deed, so to speak.
Correct. The text is explicit. The Greek term is ektisado. It's in the aorist middle tense, which suggests he either do it himself for his own benefit or it was done in his name. But he's the subject. He's the one who acquired the property.
Okay, so he's the new landowner. And then what?
And then it describes the death. It says, falling headlong, he burst open in the middle and all his entrails gushed out.
Okay, I have to ask. Falling headlong. What does that actually imply? Does that mean he tripped? Did he jump off a cliff? What are we looking at here?
The Greek phrase suggests a forward motion, a face-first plunge. It's not just a stumble. It's a violent fall. The wording implies a significant drop.
So not a simple accident.
Probably not. And the result, the bursting open, is medically debated. It could suggest a significant impact from a great height, or perhaps, and this is a bit grim, the condition of the body at the time of the fall. Decomposition can cause bloating.
Gross, but effective imagery. And because of this whole biohazard situation, the field gets a name.
Yes. The text tells us it became known to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so it was a public event. And they called the field Akeldama.
Akeldama.
Which, as Acts helpfully translates, means the field of blood. And in the context of Acts, you're led to believe it's called that because Judas's blood was spilled there. It's a physical description of the site's history.
Okay, so that's scenario A. Judas is a real estate investor who suffers a horrific accident or maybe suicide on his new property. Now let's bring in witness B, the Gospel of Matthew.
Matthew chapter 27 gives us a much more psychological drama. It's less of a police report and more of a character study.
Right.
Here, we see Judas watching the trial of Jesus. He sees that Jesus is condemned to death, and suddenly, the reality of what he's done hits him like a ton of bricks.
The text says he repented himself, right? What does that word mean exactly?
The Greek is metamaletheus. It means he felt regret, remorse, a change of feeling. It's not necessarily the deep spiritual repentance that leads to salvation, what theologians call metanoia.
It's more like buyer's remorse.
It's a crushing, emotional regret. He realizes the transaction was a catastrophic mistake. He's full of anguish.
So he tries to get a refund.
Essentially, he marches back to the chief priests and elders, the guys who hired him, and he holds out the 30 pieces of silver. He says, "I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood."
And this is one of the coldest moments in the entire Bible. What do they say to him?
They say, "What is that to us? See to it yourself."
Brutal. Not our problem, pal. We got what we paid for. The deal's done.
It is absolutely chilling. They used him, and now they discard him. So Judas, in a fit of despair, casts down the pieces of silver in the temple. He throws the money on the floor, and he leaves.
And then?
Then he goes away and hangs himself. Apengjato. Simple. Clean. Suicide by hanging. No falling, no bursting.
Okay, so in Matthew's account, he doesn't have the money anymore. He threw it back, so he can't buy a field.
Right. But the money is still there. It's on the floor of the temple. And this is where the priests get involved in a fascinating bit of legal gymnastics.
They've got a problem.
A big one. They pick up the coins and they hold a consultation. They say, "It is not lawful for to put them into the treasury because it is the price of blood."
I just have to pause on the hypocrisy here. These guys just paid a bribe to have a man executed on false charges. They're literally plotting a judicial murder. But they are worried that putting the change back in the donation box is against the rules.
It is the ultimate definition of legalism. It's astonishing. They can justify murder, but they cannot justify a liturgical impropriety regarding the korban, the sacred treasury.
So the money's dirty.
It's tainted because it bought a life. It's time amados, price of blood. They can't mix it with the holy money.
So they have this radioactive cash. What do?
They decide to launder it through a charitable donation. The text says, "And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in."
So in Matthew, the priests buy the field. The field is a cemetery. And it's called Field of Blood because of the money used to buy it, not the body that fell on it.
You've got it. Two different buyers. Judas versus the priests.
Two different deaths.
Hanging versus bursting.
Two different reasons for the name Akeldama.
The spilled blood of Judas versus the blood money of Jesus.
Now, the lazy way to handle this is to just say, well, the Bible contradicts itself, moving on, or one of them is made up. But we aren't about the lazy way here. We want to see if there's a historical reality that explains how these two accounts could be describing different angles of the same event.
And to do that, we have to stop treating this like a fable and start treating it like a complex financial transaction involving a very specific piece of real estate.
Let's talk about the land.
Yeah.
Because in my head, when I hear field, I think of like a grassy meadow with maybe some wildflowers. Sound of Music style.
That is definitely not what we are dealing with here. Not even close.
Acts calls it a field. Matthew calls it the potter's field. Is that significant?
It is huge. And we need to look at the Greek words used. It's one of those cases where the original language tells you almost everything. In Acts, the word for field is korion.
Korion. Okay. What does that mean?
In the first century, and we know this from reading secular papyri from Egypt, things like contracts and receipts, stuff completely distinct from the Bible, korion wasn't a generic word.
It had a specific meaning.
A very specific meaning. It referred to a small agricultural estate, a productive plot of land.
So a business.
Yes. A vineyard, an olive grove, a fig orchard. It stands in contrast to ediphos, which is just ground for building a house. Korion implies revenue. It implies a farm.
Okay, hold that thought. Judas, the disciple who is supposed to be following a homeless rabbi, is in the market for a revenue-generating farm. That's a red flag right there.
It certainly suggests his retirement plan wasn't waiting for the kingdom of heaven. It's a major clue to his motivations.
Right.
But now look at Matthew. Matthew uses the word agros, which is a more general word for field, but he specifies it. Ton agron to kyrmeos, the field of the potter.
Why does a potter have a field? For growing pots.
No. This is a matter of geology. Jerusalem is built on limestone, but in the valleys surrounding it, specifically the valley of Ben Hinnom to the south, there are deposits of rich red clay.
Ah, okay.
Potters need that clay to make their vessels. It's the raw material of their entire industry.
Could they dig it up?
They dig massive pits, they strip the topsoil, they extract the clay until the vein runs dry. Now imagine a piece of land that has been mined for clay for 50 or 100 years. What does it look like?
It's a mess. It's full of holes. It's unstable. A wasteland.
It is a wasteland. It's a moonscape of pits, trenches, and mounds of waste earth. And it's likely covered in pot shards, broken pieces of pottery that misfired in the kiln and were tossed out. There's even a Talmudic tradition that suggests a field full of pot shards is a sign that it was once a burial ground.
So you can't farm there. You couldn't grow anything.
Absolutely not. You can't run a plow through it. You'd break the blade on the rocks or the pottery. You can't grow wheat. It is agriculturally useless.
So Acts says Judas bought a Corian, a productive farm. Matthew says the priests bought a stripped-out clay pit. Those sound like two very different real estate listings.
They absolutely do, unless the buyer was misled, or unless the location was a plot of land that was part farm, part clay pit. But Matthew gives us the key to why the priests wanted it. He says they bought it to bury strangers in.
Why bury people in a clay pit?
Because it's the only thing the land is good for. And in Jewish law, you have strict rules about purity.
Right.
A dead body creates tuma impurity. You don't want a cemetery next to your good olive grove. You don't want it upwind of the city.
You want it in the garbage dump.
Essentially. The Valley of Hinnom, where this clay likely was historically associated with refuse, with fire, even with ancient child sacrifice. It was called Gehenna. It was the bad part of town.
Theologically and geographically.
Yes. A stripped, useless clay field is the perfect place to put the bodies of Xenois strangers, foreigners, criminals, pilgrims who died in the city, people who don't belong in the family tombs of the respectable Judeans. It's marginal land for marginal people.
Okay, so we have the geography. A nasty, broken piece of land south of the city. Now let's follow the money. Because you brought up some math that I think breaks the traditional story wide open.
The 30 pieces of silver.
We always hear that phrase. It's iconic.
Mm-hmm.
But what could you actually buy with 30 pieces of silver in 33 AD? Could you buy a farm?
The short answer is absolutely not. It is laughably insufficient.
Break it down for us. What were these coins?
So the 30 pieces is likely a reference to Tyrian shekels, which were the standard currency for the temple tax. They had high silver content and were very reliable.
Good.
But the number 30 isn't random. It's not just what they had in the petty cash drawer. It's a biblical valuation found in Exodus chapter 21, verse 32.
Which it says.
It says that if your ox gets loose and gores a neighbor's slave to death, you have to pay the slave's master 30 shekels of silver.
So it's the price of a slave.
It is the replacement cost of a human being at the lowest rung of the social ladder. When the priests offered Judas 30 pieces, they were making a powerful and deeply cynical statement.
It's an insult. It's a lowball offer.
It is a symbolic insult. They were saying, this Jesus of yours, he's worth the price of damaged property to us, no more.
Wow.
But practically speaking, in the first century economy, 30 shekels was roughly equivalent to 120 denarii.
And a denarius was.
A denarius was a day's wage for a common laborer. So we are talking about 4 months of minimum wage work.
Okay, so let's do the math. In today's money, if a laborer makes, say, $100 a day, we're talking maybe $12,000, $15,000 tops.
Give or take. Now ask yourself, can you buy a productive farm, a Corian in the capital city Jerusalem, during Passover when the city's population swelled, for $15,000?
No way. You couldn't even buy a parking spot in Jerusalem for that today, let alone then.
Exactly. Jerusalem real estate was premium. A productive plot of land would cost thousands of denarii, not 120. It is historically and economically impossible that the 30 pieces of silver alone purchased that field.
So when Acts says Judas acquired a field with the reward of injustice, the math doesn't work if reward of injustice just means the 30-piece betrayal money.
Correct. The numbers don't add up. And this forces us to look closer at that very specific phrase in Acts, mistautis adikias.
Reward of injustice.
Yeah.
It sounds very King James, very poetic.
It does. But let's strip away the religious language and look at the business language of the time. The word adikia literally means unrighteousness or injustice. But in the Greek papyri, we were talking about contracts, legal complaints, receipts from Roman Egypt. Adikia is a technical term used in forensic accounting.
What does it mean in a forensic context? Not just a bad thing.
No, it's specific. It means fraud. It means embezzlement. It means cooked books.
Whoa, okay.
In one document, for instance, P. Oxy 237, which is a petition about a land dispute, The term is used to describe a swindle, someone stealing money or falsifying records. It's a legal term for financial crime.
This connects directly to something else we know about Judas, or at least that one of the Gospels tells us. The Gospel of John calls him out on this.
John chapter 12, verse 6. It's explicit. John writes, talking about Judas, he was a thief. He kept the money bag and used to help himself to what was put into it.
The embezzlement theory.
It's the only way the math works. If Judas is buying a field that costs way more than 30 pieces of silver, he must have had other funds. Where did he get them? He was a disciple of a poor rabbi.
A slush fund.
Exactly. He's a treasure for the disciples. People are donating to Jesus' ministry. We hear about wealthy women, other supporters. Judas is the guy holding the purse strings. And for months, maybe years, he's been skimming.
Siphoning off cash. Building a little nest egg.
So when Acts says he bought the field with the reward of fraud, it's not just being poetic about the betrayal, it's being literal about the source of his wealth. He's using laundered ministry funds to invest in real estate.
That changes the whole profile of the man. We usually think of Judas as this tragic figure who maybe got disillusioned or was possessed by Satan in a moment of weakness. But this is premeditated white-collar crime.
It's a long con. You don't decide to buy a farm overnight. This was a plan. He was building an exit strategy.
He's looking at Jesus and thinking, this movement's going to crash. The Romans will come down on us, or the priests will. I need a parachute. I need assets.
I need to secure my future in Jerusalem. And the 30 pieces of silver, that might have just been the final chunk of cash he needed to close the deal. Or maybe it was just greed on top of greed, the cherry on top of the embezzled sundae.
So let's revisit the scene in Acts. This man acquired a field. In this light, that sentence means Judas successfully funneled stolen money into a property deal.
Yes. The transaction was likely initiated well before the crucifixion. He had the contract, he had the down payment, the wheels were in motion.
But then he feels guilty. And this brings us back to the contradiction. If he bought the field in Acts, why does Matthew say he threw the money back?
This is where we have to synthesize the timeline. We can't see them as contradictory if we see them as sequential. Imagine the sequence. Judas sets up the deal for the field. He pays a deposit using stolen funds. He agrees to pay the balance later.
Okay, standard real estate deal.
Escrow. Right. He betrays Jesus. He gets the 30 pieces of silver. Maybe he intends to use that to pay the taxes or the fees on the land. But then the guilt breaks him.
He realizes the cost.
Yeah.
Not the financial cost, but the human one.
He tries to abort the mission. He runs to the priests and throws the 30 pieces back. He wants to undo the specific act of betrayal, but he can't return the stolen money he's already sunk into the land deal. That money is gone. It's in the hands of the seller.
So the priests are left holding the 30 coins, and they know about the land deal.
They probably do. Jerusalem is a small town for the elite. They know Judas was buying that plot in the valley. They know the deal is in limbo because Judas is now, well, dead.
So they take the 30 pieces, the blood money, and they use it to finish the transaction.
Or to repurpose the land. The land is now associated with a traitor. It's tainted. No respectable Jew wants to farm it. It's notorious. So the priests say, fine, we'll take title to the land. We'll use the blood money to cover the costs. And since it's a cursed field bought by a cursed man, we'll use it for a cursed purpose.
A cemetery for strangers.
It fits perfectly. The priests bought it in the sense that they finalized the legal status and designated its use. Judas bought it in the sense that it was his money stolen and otherwise that paid for it, and it was his initiative that secured it.
That is actually really consistent. It's not a contradiction. It's a sequence of a failed business deal followed by a probate issue.
Exactly. It's a probate crisis solved by creating a public utility graveyard.
I love that. Probate crisis. Before we move to the profiling, which is my favorite part, we have to address the prophecy elephant in the room. Matthew quotes Jeremiah, but you said he's actually quoting Zechariah. What's going on there?
The famous citation error, or so it seems. This is one of those places where modern readers get tripped up, but a first-century Jewish reader would have understood immediately.
So Matthew 27, verse 9. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet. And then he talks about 30 pieces of silver in a platter.
But if you go to the book of Jeremiah and you search for 30 pieces of silver, you won't find it. You find it in Zechariah chapter 11, verses 12 and 13.
So did Matthew just mess up? Did he pull the wrong scroll off the shelf? That seems like a pretty big error. for a gospel writer.
It's highly unlikely. Matthew is a very careful writer, especially with prophecy. What he's doing here is a very Jewish literary technique called midrash, or more specifically, a form of thematic combination. He is remixing two prophecies to create a new layer of meaning.
Like a DJ mashing up two tracks.
That is a perfect analogy. He wants the math of Zechariah, but he wants the vibe of Jeremiah.
Okay, unpack the Zechariah track first. What's the original context?
In Zechariah 11, the prophet plays the role of a shepherd who is rejected by the people. He asks for his wages for shepherding them, and they weigh out 30 pieces of silver.
The slave price. Again.
Right. It's the ultimate insult. And God tells Zechariah, throw it to the potter, the magnificent price at which I was valued by them. Note the sarcasm. Magnificent price.
Got a snarky. I like it.
So Zechariah takes the money and throws it into the house of the Lord, the temple, to the potter. So you have the exact elements of the Judas story. 30 pieces thrown into the temple involving a potter. It's a perfect match.
Okay, so that's the script. Why bring in Jeremiah? What does he add to the mashup?
Because Zechariah doesn't have the field of blood. Jeremiah does. In Jeremiah chapter 19, God tells Jeremiah to go buy a potter's clay flask.
A clay flask.
And where does he go to do this? He goes to the valley of Ben Hinnom.
The same valley where our field is. The valley of the potters.
The valley of clay. And Jeremiah gathers the elders and he smashes the flask on the ground and says, "Thus says the Lord, so will I break this people and this city as one breaks a potter's vessel, so that it can never be mended."
That's heavy.
And he prophesies that the valley will no longer be called the valley of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter, where they will bury the dead until there is no more room.
So Matthew looks at Judas and sees Zechariah's money. But he looks at the field and sees Jeremiah's graveyard.
Exactly. And he credits Jeremiah because in the ancient ordering of the prophets, Jeremiah came first and was considered the major figure. The theme of judgment on the land from Jeremiah is the bigger theological point he wants to make. He's telling his readers, this isn't just a sad suicide. This is the judgment of Jeremiah 19 coming down on the priesthood and on Jerusalem.
That is deep. It's like he's hyperlinking to two different files at once to tell you this is the end of an era. It's not a mistake. It's a deliberate, complex theological argument.
It turns a real estate transaction into a theological apocalypse.
All right. We've done the forensics. We've done the theology. Now I want to get into the psychology. Because you uncovered something about Judas's background that completely changed how I see him. We tend to think of him as just one of the 12, but you think he was part of a specific social group.
Yes. There is a strong historical case to be made that Judas was a haver.
A haver. H-A-V-E-R. What does that mean?
It literally means friend or associate. But in the first century, it was a technical term. A haver was a member of a religious fraternity, a fellowship, dedicated to the meticulous observance of the laws of purity and tithing.
So like a Pharisee, in the same ballpark.
Very similar, but specifically focused on agriculture and food. A haver pledged, for instance, that he would never buy food from someone who wasn't trustworthy regarding tithes. He would never eat with an amharetz, a person of the land, a commoner who didn't know the rules.
They were the foodies of the ancient world, but intense. Is this organic? Is this tithed? Who picked this?
Precisely. They were obsessed with Maserat tithes and Tahora, purity. Everything had to be ritually clean and properly accounted for before God.
Okay, what makes us think Judas was one of these guys?
Well, look at Judas. His name, Iscariot, likely means Ish Kerioth, man of Kerioth. Kerioth was a town in Judea, in the south.
Okay, and the other disciples?
They are all Galileans. Peter, Andrew, James, John. They are fishermen from the north. Matthew was a tax collector from up there.
And we've talked about this on the show before. There was a rivalry, right? A cultural divide.
Oh, massive. The Judean elites in Jerusalem looked down on Galileans as country bumpkins. They thought Galileans were lax, uneducated, and sloppy with the Torah. They mocked their accents. There are jokes in the Talmud about how you can't trust a Galilean to pronounce his words correctly.
So Judas is the only Judean, the only southerner in a group of northerners. He's the odd man out from day one.
And if he is a haver, a strict observer, imagine his daily life. He's traveling with a group of guys who are constantly getting yelled at by the Pharisees for not washing their hands, for plucking grain on the Sabbath, for eating with sinners and tax collectors.
It must have been torture for him. He is the guy trying to follow the rules, and his friends are acting like, well, hippies.
It creates what we call status anxiety. Judas is likely embarrassed by his association with these unclean Galileans. He wants to distinguish himself. He wants to prove that he is a true, observant Israelite.
And how do you prove that in that world?
You buy land in Jerusalem.
Why? Why does owning a farm prove you're holy?
This is the crux of the theory. There are 4 main reasons why a hare like Judas, obsessed with purity and status, would be desperate to own land in Judea specifically.
Lay them on me.
Reason number 1, tithes. Maserat. In Galilee, the tithing system was loose. It was far from the temple. But in Judea, near the temple, it was strictly supervised by the priesthood. If you owned land there, you could ensure your produce was 100% kosher. You could separate the tithe yourself, hand it to the priest, and know you were right with God.
Okay. Reason 1, control over religious duty. It's a statement.
Reason number 2, the Shemitah, the sabbatical year. Every 7 years, the Torah says the land has to rest. No farming. In Judea, this was enforced with serious sanctions. In Galilee, people cheated. If Judas owns land in Judea, he can publicly display his piety by letting his field rest. It's a billboard that says, I follow the law.
It's virtue signaling through real estate.
Precisely. Reason number 3, purity, tahora. Galilee was known, according to rabbinic sources, for hidden tombs. You could walk over an unmarked grave and not know it, making you impure for 7 days.
A nightmare for a hever.
An absolute nightmare. Jerusalem, on the other hand, was mapped. Tombs were whitewashed with lime to make them visible. A haver needs to know where the bodies are to stay clean. Jerusalem also had superior ritual baths, mikvah for purifying tools and vessels.
The irony alert is just blaring here. He buys land to avoid hidden tombs and ends up buried in a potter's field.
The irony is screaming at us. And finally, reason number 4, economics and social climbing. In that culture, you weren't someone unless you owned land, specifically an achuza, an ancestral holding. If Judas wanted to be accepted by the Jerusalem elite, the high priests, the Sadducees, he needed to be a landowner, not just a wandering vagrant following a Galilean preacher. Produce from Judea, especially wine, was also considered superior for temple offerings and fetched a higher price.
So this explains why he had access to the high priest. I always wondered that. How does a random disciple just walk into Caiaphas' office and cut a deal?
Exactly. You don't just knock on the door. But if Judas has been in Jerusalem for some time, meeting with landowners, negotiating a purchase, presenting himself as a pious haver, I'm not like those Galileans, I'm one of you, then he has a network. He's a known quantity.
He's been networking. He's been trying to switch teams this whole time.
He's trying to cross the aisle. The betrayal isn't just about 30 coins. It's the final act of him proving his loyalty to the establishment. Look, I'm handing over the troublemaker. I'm on your side. I'm buying property here. I'm planting roots.
He's buying his way into the club.
He thinks he is. He thinks, once I have this field and once I help the high priest deal with this Jesus problem, I'll be set. I'll be a respected, wealthy, pious member of Jerusalem society.
But there's a logistical problem with this plan. The timeline. We're talking about Holy Week. The city is packed. It's busy. Jesus is teaching. The Romans are watching. How does Judas have time to meet a realtor and sign papers?
That is the basista theory.
The what? Say that again?
Basista. It's a term for a base or a contact, an intermediary, a fixer. You're right. Judas couldn't have done this alone in a few hours on Good Friday. The legal process of Kenyan acquiring land was bureaucratic in Jewish law. You needed witnesses. You needed to weigh the silver. You needed deeds drawn up.
So he must have had someone on the inside, someone in Jerusalem working for him.
We know from the Gospels that there were Jerusalemites who followed Jesus, some secretly. Or perhaps Judas was working with a corrupt agent of the temple. This supports the idea that this was a long-term plan. He had the wheels turning weeks or months in advance.
So he's carrying the money bag, he's stealing from it, he's sending cash to his fixer in Jerusalem, put a down payment on that Corian in the valley.
Get the paperwork ready. I'll be there for Passover to sign the final documents.
And the 30 pieces of silver.
That's the closing cost. Or the bribe to expedite the title transfer, the final payment.
It all fits. It turns Judas from a cartoon villain with a mustache into a complex, desperate, ambitious human being. He's a guy caught between two worlds, the radical grace of Jesus and the rigid legalism of the temple. And he chooses the temple.
He chooses the system that offers him status, wealth, and what he perceives as righteousness. He chooses the field over the friend.
So let's bring it all home. Let's create the grand unified theory of the field of blood. Combine Acts, Matthew, the history, the money, the profile. Tell me the story of what happened from start to finish.
Here is the narrative that the evidence supports. Judas Iscariot, a strict Haver from Judea, grows disillusioned with the Galilean Jesus. He fears the movement is failing, or he simply craves the respect of the Jerusalem elite he feels he deserves. So he begins embezzling funds from the ministry treasury, the reward of injustice.
Step 1. Accumulate capital. The
Yeah.
long con.
Step 2. He contacts a broker, a basista in Jerusalem, and arranges to purchase a Corian, a farm in the valley of Hinnom. He wants a place to exercise his strict tithes and sabbatical observance to prove his piety. He pays a deposit with the stolen funds.
The legal machinery starts turning. The deal is in motion.
Step 3. He arrives in Jerusalem for Passover. He goes to the chief priests, a group he's already been cultivating a relationship with. He offers to betray Jesus. They give him 30 pieces of silver. He sees this as his ticket in both financially and socially.
The deal is done. Jesus is arrested.
Step 4. The guilt. Judas sees Jesus condemned. He realizes that his pursuit of religious status has led to the murder of an innocent man. The moral weight crushes him. He has buyer's remorse on a cosmic scale.
He tries to undo it.
He runs to the temple. He throws the 30 pieces of silver, the specific bribe money, back at the priests. He wants to sever his connection with that single bloody transaction. They refuse it. He leaves it there.
But he still has the field problem. He can't get his down payment back.
The field deal is pending. The money he stole is already sunk into it. In his despair, he goes to the very place he hoped would be his legacy. The field in the valley, the symbol of his ambition and failure.
And
There, amidst the clay pits and the broken pottery, he takes his own life. He hangs himself, as Matthew reports.
And then the gruesome part from Acts.
Sometime later, the body, perhaps bloated from decomposition in the Middle Eastern sun, falls. The rope snaps or the branch breaks. It falls into the rocky, jagged terrain of a clay pit below. The bursting asunder is the grim, physical aftermath of the suicide.
And the priests, what do they do now?
They are left with the 30 coins and a legal mess. They know the field was Judas's. They know it's tainted. So they take the coins, perhaps use them to pay off the remaining balance to the original owner or just cover the fees, and they redesignate the land.
We can't grow olives here. It's the trader's land. And look, it's full of clay holes anyway. It's useless.
Let's make it a cemetery for strangers. They solve their blood money problem and their public relations problem with Judas's land in one move.
So the field gets its name, Akeldama, for 3 reasons, really.
1, it was bought with the blood money of Jesus. That's Matthew's angle.
2, it was the site where Judas's blood was spilled. That's the Acts angle.
And 3, it became the resting place for the blood of strangers, the final purpose of the land. It's a triple entendre of blood.
That is heavy. It's a tragic irony. Judas wanted a field for purity. He wanted to be a Haver. He wanted to follow the laws of Maserat and Shemitah. And he ended up with a graveyard for the unclean.
He sought Tahora, purity, and achieved the maximum Tuma, impurity. He wanted a place for us, the chosen, the observant, and he created a place for them, the strangers, the outcasts.
And he used fraud, edikia, to try to buy justice, dike, or at least the appearance of it, the status of it.
That is the profound warning in this story. It's easy to look at Judas as a monster, but if this profile is right, he wasn't trying to be a monster. He was trying to be correct.
He was obsessed with the rules.
He was obsessed with the mechanics of religion, tithes, land ownership, proper associations, purity codes. He was checking all the boxes of what a good religious Jew should do in Jerusalem.
But he missed the point entirely.
He was so focused on the letter of the law, on acquiring the right land to do the right rituals, that he completely missed the spirit of the law, which was standing right in front of him in the person of Jesus. Love, mercy, justice for the poor. All of that was secondary to getting his paperwork in order.
He betrayed the innocent blood to buy a field of dirt.
And in doing so, he revealed that his heart was full of adikia injustice, even while his external actions were trying to look pious. It's a warning about how religious correctness can sometimes mask a profound inner corruption.
That is a thought that lingers. We tend to think of evil as chaotic, as breaking all the rules. But sometimes evil loves paperwork. Sometimes evil loves to follow the rules right up until the moment it destroys you.
A sobering thought indeed.
We're going to leave it there. The mystery of the field of blood, not just a contradiction in the text, but a window into the mind of a man who tried to buy his way into heaven and bought a graveyard instead.
Well put.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.